Year in and year out, thousands of children grow up in the midst of the moral and material filth of our great cities, in the midst of a population demoralized by hand-to-mouth living. These children do not know a real home. Their home is a wretched lodging today, the streets tomorrow. They grow up without any decent outlets for their young energies. When we see the child population of large cities grow up in this fashion, we can only be astonished that so few of them become highwaymen and murderers. What surprises me is the depth of the social sentiments among humanity, the warm friendliness of even the worst neighborhoods. Without it, the number of these that would declare open warfare on society would be even greater. Without this friendliness, this aversion of violence, not a stone would be left on our sumptuous city palaces. And at the other end of the ladder, what does the child growing up on the street see? Luxury, stupid and insensitive. Smart shops, reading matter devoted to exhibiting wealth, a money-worshipping cult developing a thirst for riches, a passion for living at the expense of others. The watchword is, get rich, destroy everything that stands in your way, and do it by any means save those that will land you in jail. Manual labor is despised to a point where our ruling classes prefer to indulge in gymnastics than handle a spade or a saw. A calloused hand is considered a sign of inferiority, and a silk dress of superiority. Society itself, daily, creates these people incapable of leading a life of honest labor and filled with antisocial desires. She glorifies them when their crimes are crowned with financial success. She sends them to prison when they have not succeeded. She will no longer have any use for prisons, executioners, or judges when the social revolution will have wholly changed the relations between capital and labor, when there are no more idlers, when each can work according to his inclination for the common good, when every child will be taught to work with his hands at the same time that his mind and soul will get normal development. Man is the result of the environment in which he grows up and spends his life. If he is accustomed to work from childhood, to being considered as a part of society as a whole, to understanding that he cannot injure anyone without finally feeling the effects himself, then there will be found new cases of violation of moral laws. 2/3 of the acts condemned as crimes today are acts against property. They will disappear along with the private property. As for acts of violence against people, they already decrease in proportion to the growth of the social sense, and they will disappear when we attack the causes instead of the effects. How shall offenders be cured? Until now, penal institutions, so dear to the lawyers, were a compromise between the biblical idea of vengeance, the belief of the Middle Ages in the devil, the modern lawyers' idea of terrorization, and the idea of the prevention of crime by punishment. It is not insane asylums that must be built instead of prisons. Such an inconceivable idea is far from my mind. The insane asylum is always a prison. Far from my mind also is the idea, launched from time to time by the philanthropists, that the prison should be entrusted to physicians and teachers. What prisoners have not found today in society is a helping hand, simple and friendly, which would aid them from childhood to develop the higher faculties of their minds and souls, faculties whose natural development has been impeded either by an organic defect or by evil social conditions which society itself creates for millions of people. But these superior faculties of the mind and heart cannot be exercised by a person deprived of his liberty, if he never has a choice of action. The physician's prison, the insane asylum, would be much worse than our present jails. Human fraternity and liberty are the only correctives to apply to those diseases of the human organism which lead to so-called crime. Of course, in every society, no matter how well organized, people will be found with easily aroused passions, who may, from time to time, commit antisocial deeds. But what is necessary to prevent this is to give their passions a healthy direction, another outlet. Today we live too isolated. Private property has led us to an egotistic individualism in all our mutual relations. We know one another only slightly. Our points of contact are only too rare. But we have seen in history examples of a communal life which is more intimately bound together, the composite family in China, The agrarian communes, for example. These people really know one another. By force or of circumstance, they must aid each other materially and morally. Family life, based on the original community, has disappeared. A new family, based on community of aspirations, will take its place. In this family, people will be obliged to know one another, to aid another, and lean on one another for moral support on every occasion. And this mutual prop will prevent the great number of antisocial acts which we see today. It will be said, however, that there always remain some people, the sick, if you wish to call them that, who constitute a danger to society. Will it not be necessary somehow to rid ourselves of them, or at least prevent their harming others? No society, no matter how little intelligent, will need such an absurd solution, and this is why. Formerly, the insane were looked upon as possessed by demons, and were treated accordingly. They were kept in chains, in places like stables, riveted to the walls like wild beasts. But along came Pinel, a man of the great Revolution, who dared to remove their chains and tried treating them as brothers. "You will be devoured by them," cried the keepers, but Pinel dared. Those who were believed to be wild beasts gathered around Pinel and proved by their attitude that he was right in believing in the better side of human nature even when the intelligence is clouded by disease. Then the cause was won. They stopped chaining the insane. Then the peasants of the little Belgian village, Giel, found something better. They said, "Send us your insane. We will give them absolute freedom." They adopted them into their families, they gave them places at their tables, chance alongside them to cultivate their fields, and a place among their young people at the country balls. Eat, drink, and dance with us. Work, run about the fields and be free. That was the system. That was all the science the Belgian peasants had. And liberty worked a miracle. The insane became cured. Even those who had incurable or organic lesions became sweet, tractable members of the family like the rest. The diseased mind would always work in an abnormal fashion, but the heart was in the right place. They cried that it was a miracle. The cures were attributed to a saint and a virgin, but this virgin was liberty, and the saint was work in the fields and fraternal treatment. At one of the extremes of the immense space between mental disease and crime, of which Maudsley speaks, liberty and fraternal treatment have worked their miracle. They will do the same at the other extreme. To sum up, the prison does not prevent antisocial acts from taking place. It increases their numbers. It does not improve those who enter its walls. However it is reformed, it will always remain a place of restraint, an artificial environment, like a monastery, which will make the prisoner less and less fit for life in the community. It does not achieve its end. It degrades society. It must disappear. It is a survival of barbarism mixed with Jesuitical philanthropy. The first duty of the revolution will be to abolish prisons, those monuments of human hypocrisy and cowardice. Antisocial acts need not be feared in a society of equals, in the midst of a free people, all of whom have acquired a healthy education and the habit of mutually aiding one another. The greater number of these acts will no longer have any reason for existence. The others will have been nipped in the bud. As for those individuals with evil tendencies whom existing society will pass on to us after the revolution, it will be our task to prevent their exercising these tendencies. This is already accomplished quite efficiently by the solidarity of all the members of the community against such aggressors. If we do not succeed in all cases, the only practical corrective still will be the fraternal treatment and moral support. This is not utopia. It is already done by isolated individuals, and it will become a general practice. And such means will be far more powerful to protect society from antisocial acts than the existing system of punishment, which is an ever fertile source of new crimes.